Remember, when you could pick up the phone and hear your neighbor's conversation? No, we're not talking about eavesdropping. It was just how phones worked back then. Ready to step into a time machine? Number 1. Partyline telephones. Picture this. It's 1965, and you're in a cozy kitchen with avocado green appliances. The rotary phone on the wall starts ringing. You rush to answer, but wait, is it actually for you? Welcome to the world of party lines, where privacy was as rare as a color TV. Ever tried to make an urgent call only to hear your neighbor gossiping about last night's episode of Bonanza? That was life with party lines. Imagine planning a surprise party while the guest of honor listens in. Or worse, your crush overhearing you talk about them. Talk about awkward. By the mid-1960s, about a third of American households were still using party lines. But as private lines became more affordable and cell phones arrived on the scene, these shared connections quickly became a thing of the past. Now, who's ready to learn about another tool that helped us crunch numbers before smartphones took over? Number 2. Slide rules. Remember when math class didn't involve staring at a screen? Picture a 1960s classroom filled with the sound of rulers sliding and students muttering logarithms under their breath. We're about to explore a calculation tool so powerful it helped put humans on the moon, yet so obsolete many of us have never seen one in action. Back in the swinging 60s, slide rules were the pocket calculators of their day. These nifty little gadgets looked like rulers with a movable middle section. But don't let their simple appearance fool you. They were capable of some serious number crunching. Engineers used them to design skyscrapers, and scientists relied on them for complex formulas in physics and chemistry. Using a slide rule was a bit like solving a puzzle. You had to line up the right numbers, read tiny markings, and sometimes even estimate your answer. It took practice, skill, and a good eye. But once you got the hang of it, you could multiply, divide, and even tackle tricky things like square roots and trigonometry. These mathematical marvels had been around since the 1600s, believe it or not, but their reign came to an end in the 1970s when electronic calculators hit the scene. Suddenly, getting precise answers was as easy as pushing a few buttons. No more squinting at tiny markings or sliding rulers back and forth. The slide rules days were numbered, and soon they vanished from classrooms and offices alike. Number 3. Punch cards. Think entering data on your smartphone is tedious? Picture yourself in a 1960s office surrounded by towering machines and boxes upon boxes of cards? Get ready to explore the surprisingly holy history of early computing that'll make you grateful for your keyboard. Back in the swinging 60s, offices were filled with the rhythmic sound of key punch machines. Programmers would painstakingly transfer their code onto stiff paper cards, punching tiny holes to represent data. One wrong punch, and you'd have to start all over again. Can you imagine carrying your latest program around in a stack of cards that could topple at any moment? These punch cards weren't just for computer geeks, though. They were used everywhere from businesses to government offices. A single card could hold up to 80 characters of information. Not much by today's standards, but revolutionary at the time. Some programs needed thousands of cards to run, which meant a lot of heavy lifting for office workers. Number 4. Reel-to-reel tape recorders. Imagine walking into a 1960s living room and seeing two massive reels spinning hypnotically. This wasn't a sci-fi movie prop. It was the height of home audio technology. Reel-to-reel tape recorders were the audiophile's dream, offering sound quality that would make your vinyl-loving friends jealous. But using these behemoths wasn't for the faint of heart. Threading the tape through the machine was like solving a puzzle with your eyes closed. One wrong move and you'd end up with a tangled mess of magnetic tape. But once you got it right, pure audio magic. People use these recorders for everything. Music lovers taped their favorite radio shows, families captured precious moments, and aspiring musicians laid down their first tracks. The sound quality was unmatched for its time, making reel-to-reel the go-to choice for serious audiophiles and recording studios alike. Number 5. Transistor radios. In the 1960s, freedom had a new sound, and it crackled through the air at the turn of a dial. Before smartphones ruled our pockets, another device reigned supreme. What made millions of teenagers suddenly inseparable from these pocket-sized wonders, and why did they drive parents crazy? Picture this. It's 1965, and you're a teenager sprawled on your bed, eagerly twisting the dial of your shiny new transistor radio. The tinny sound of the latest Beatles hit fills your room, and suddenly, the world feels a whole lot bigger. These little gadgets were nothing short of revolutionary. For the first time ever, you could take your tunes anywhere, to the beach, on a picnic, or even sneak them into class. Not that we're suggesting you should. Brands like Sony became household names, churning out sleek little radios that fit right in your pocket. Can you believe that by the mid-60s, millions of these were being sold every year? They weren't just for listening to music either. Teens would huddle around them during baseball games or rock concerts, feeling connected to events happening miles away. But transistor radios did more than just play music. They sparked a cultural revolution. Suddenly, young people had a way to tune into their own world, away from prying parental ears. They became the soundtrack to beach parties, the center of attention at picnics, and a must-have accessory for any self-respecting teenager. Number 6. Film reels. Picture this. It's 1965, and the whole family's huddled around a blank wall, eagerly waiting for movie night to begin. But before the first image flickers to life, there's a delicate dance to perform. Remember the satisfying click-clack of film threading through sprockets? That was the soundtrack to countless family memories in the making. Setting up a film reel projector was no easy feat. You had to carefully thread the film, making sure it was aligned just right to avoid jams. One wrong move, and you'd be untangling a mess of celluloid. But once you got it working, pure magic. The room would fill with the whirring of the projector, and suddenly, last summer's beach trip or little Timmy's first steps were larger than life on your living room wall. Back then, capturing these precious moments wasn't cheap. A decent projector and camera could set you back $100 to $300. That's like spending a month's rent just to preserve your memories. But for many families, it was worth every penny. Popular cameras like the Kodak Instamatic made it easier for anyone to become a family filmmaker. Number 7. Manual typewriters. Think your computer keyboard is a speed demon? Let's turn back the clock to when typing was a true test of skill and nerves. In the 1960s, a simple memo could be a minefield of potential errors. Ready to discover why even the fastest typists of yesteryear might struggle to keep up with today's texting teens? Picture a bustling 1960s office, the air filled with the rhythmic clacking of keys striking paper. Manual typewriters were the workhorses of the business world, each keystroke leaving an indelible mark. But using these machines was no walk in the park. Typists needed lightning-fast fingers and eagle eyes to produce error-free documents. One slip, and you'd be starting over from scratch. The IBM Selectric was the king of the typewriter jungle back then. With its unique typeball mechanism, it allowed for faster typing and easy font changes. But even on this high-tech marvel, the average typist could only manage 40 to 60 words per minute. Compare that to today's electronic keyboard wizards who can easily hit 100 words per minute. Number 8. Adding machines. You've heard of arm day at the gym, but have you ever considered finger day? For 1960s accountants, every day was finger day. These number-crunching wizards battled with mechanical beasts known as adding machines, turning simple math into a full-body workout. Picture this: a 1960s office filled with the rhythmic clacking of keys and the grinding of gears. Our accountant friend sits at his desk, brow furrowed in concentration as he punches in numbers on a contraption that looks like a typewriter on steroids. With each calculation, he pulls a crank, muscles straining as the machine whirs and clicks. These adding machines weren't just for simple addition. Oh no, they could handle everything from balancing checkbooks to calculating complex business expenses. And while they might seem slow compared to today's lightning-fast computers, They were actually quite the time saver back then. Imagine doing all those calculations by hand. Number 9. Stainless steel ice cube trays. From number crunching to ice crushing, the 1960s were full of surprises. Think you know all about vintage kitchenware? Let's put that to the test. What common household item from this era required a special technique just to produce something we now take for granted? Picture a 1960s hostess, decked out in her best party dress, wrestling with a shiny metal contraption in her kitchen. These weren't your average ice cube trays, they were stainless steel beasts that required some serious muscle to operate. With a party just hours away, our hostess fills each compartment carefully, knowing that overfilling could lead to a frozen disaster. Fast forward a few hours, and it's showtime. Our hostess cracks the lever, hoping for a clean release of perfectly formed cubes. But more often than not, she's met with stubborn ice that refuses to budge. It's a delicate balance of force and finesse, trying to free the ice without sending cubes flying across the kitchen. Number 10. Cigarette lighters in cars. Imagine cruising down the highway in your '65 Mustang, one hand on the wheel, the other reaching for that little knob on the dashboard. With a satisfying click, you're seconds away from lighting up. Remember when every car came with its own built-in fire starter? Back in the swinging '60s, smoking was as common as white picket fences. Nearly half of all adults were puffing away, and car manufacturers made sure you could keep the habit going on the road. Ashtrays were standard issue, nestled right next to those magical cigarette lighters. But these handy devices weren't just for smokers. Clever drivers found all sorts of uses for that 12-volt power source, from warming baby bottles to powering portable radios. As the years rolled by, attitudes towards smoking took a sharp turn. Suddenly, lighting up behind the wheel wasn't so cool anymore. Car makers caught on, replacing those trusty lighters with power outlets for our gadgets. Now, when's the last time you saw an ashtray in a new car? Number 11. Portable phonographs. Remember when taking your music collection on a picnic meant lugging around a suitcase-sized contraption? The 1960s saw the rise of a revolutionary device that had teenagers dancing in parks and beaches across America. But this musical marvel came with a catch. One wrong move, and your favorite song could skip right off the record. Picture this. It's a sunny day in 1965, and a group of friends are setting up for a picnic in the park. The centerpiece isn't the food. It's a portable phonograph, carefully placed on the flattest patch of ground they can find. These nifty devices brought the party wherever you went, but they weren't exactly rugged. Keeping the needle on track while your friends danced around was a real challenge. Popular models like the RCA and Zenith were must-haves for music-loving teens. They often needed a bit of elbow grease to operate, with hand cranks to keep the tunes flowing. But that extra effort was part of the fun. The unique sound from the horn gave every song a nostalgic quality that modern speakers just can't match. Number 12. Kodak Brownie cameras. Ever wondered why our grandparents were so excited about a simple box with a button? The Kodak Brownie wasn't just a camera, it was a time machine in disguise. With every click, it froze a moment, but the real magic happened in the darkroom. What made this humble device so revolutionary? Picture this. It's a sunny day in 1965, and the Johnson family is out for a picnic. Dad's got the Brownie in hand, ready to capture little Susie's first attempt at flying a kite. Click! The moment's preserved, but the anticipation's just beginning. You see, back then, we couldn't just swipe to see our photos. We had to wait days, sometimes weeks, for our precious memories to be developed. The Brownie was a game changer. It made photography accessible to everyone, not just the pros. Can you believe it sold 250,000 units in its first year alone? That's a lot of family albums filled. From the original $1 model to later versions with fancy flash attachments, Brownies were the go-to for capturing life's little moments. Number 13. CRT televisions. From boxy cameras to even boxier TVs, the 1960s saw a revolution in home entertainment, with cathode ray tube televisions becoming the focal point of family life. But did you know that by the end of the decade, these glowing behemoths had invaded a staggering 93% of American homes? Picture this. It's 1965, and the Johnsons are huddled around their brand new RCA Victor. This TV isn't just an appliance, it's practically furniture. Weighing over 100 pounds and taking up half the living room, it's a far cry from today's sleek flat screens. But back then, it was the hottest tech in town. These TVs weren't just big, they were game changers. The arrival of color broadcasting had families glued to their sets, soaking in vibrant images of everything from I Dream of Jeannie to the moon landing. Primetime viewing became a national pastime, with millions tuning in to their favorite shows each night. But as technology marched on, our beloved CRTs couldn't keep up. Flat screens came along, offering bigger pictures without the bulk. Suddenly, those deep-backed TVs seemed as outdated as, well. Speaking of outdated tech, ready to take a look back at all the gadgets we've covered?